When we think of lost, cancelled, and deleted media, we typically think of the reasons why these movies, series, songs, video games, books, etc. couldn't be released to the public as they were initially intended to. Maybe it's something as simple as the project not meeting the standards of those involved, causing a delay or cancellation. Maybe a scene in an upcoming movie didn't sit well with test audiences, so it's promptly edited out of the final product. But in some cases, the piece of media passes through every single approval imaginable, but an unforeseen event takes place in real life, resulting in incredibly poor timing. This could be something as petty as celebrity drama, or something as serious as a national tragedy. If the piece of media were to be released coinciding with these events, it wouldn't go over well with the audience. So the scene, video game, or even an album full of songs is either heavily edited or scrapped completely. Some slowly released over time after the dust settles, some remaining lost forever. Hello, this is Flurry Moon. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are covering a very interesting topic, and that is media altered due to current events. I do have to say this video will have a little bit more dark undertones than usual, so I will give a trigger warning right here. We do lightly touch on tragedy involving the passing of some individuals, if you will. I typically try to shy away from topics like this, as I know a lot of people view this channel as a safe, cozy, lighthearted space you can go to get away from all that. But this is something I just find really interesting, and I couldn't not talk about it. And in order to discuss the media we will be talking about in this video, which is the main focus, I will have to acknowledge these events, although I will not be delving into them as a whole. I will try to keep this as lighthearted as I can, of course without being disrespectful or flippant. I'm in no way trying to disregard the impact of these tragedies, and I don't want to talk about them as some kind of spectacle or even try to make this video scary at all. After all, these aren't just stories, they are real things that have happened to real people and aren't meant for our awe and entertainment. However, I would be doing this video a disservice if I didn't even mention the events that caused these pieces of media to be altered, edited, canceled, postponed, whatever. I know this already sounds really depressing, but I promise I'm honestly really proud of this video, and I'm all about preserving media and, I don't know, just delving into the niche and obscure worlds of the media that we've grown up with. But before we dive into this video, I would love if you guys were to check out my channel artist's new illustrated short story entitled Cocofolk and the Mushroom Hourglass. It's a whimsical tale of curiosity, magic, and balloon animals. If you are a fan of the hamsters Ivan draws for this channel, here's a bunch of examples here, then I highly recommend checking out the first link in my description to see what else he is capable of, because you are not going to want to miss this short story. I had a blast reading it. I loved every picture on every page. I think it has a lot of heart that sometimes I think we are lacking in today's world. And comment below if you go and check it out and let me know what you think. With that, let's get right into it. Precure and what could have been. This will be the first case that's media was altered due to a real-life tragedy that coincided with it. Precure All-Stars DX3 Deliver the Future, the rainbow-colored flower that connects the world, yes, that is the full title, is an animated film based on the Precure franchise that was set to be released in Japan on March 19th, 2011. This action-filled magical girl series was no stranger to some pretty intense fight scenes and dark storylines altogether, but the timing of one in particular resulted in the scene being cut from the movie at the very last minute. This was due to the scene being unfortunately reminiscent of the earthquake and tsunami that heavily affected Japan just weeks prior. This would not be the first or last piece of media postponed or edited due to tragedy. In this case, the natural disasters that were still fresh in everyone's minds. We will see later in this video that at times like these, people don't really know what to do with themselves, and the media sure as hell doesn't want to remind the community of the events any more than they already are. Several films were delayed or pulled from theaters altogether in Japan, such as Hereafter, Sanctum, and Countdown to Zero. Back to Pretty Precure, fans have speculated that the scene or scenes were added back to the DVD release, but I don't believe that has ever been confirmed. I received a comment the last time I mentioned this case, claiming the deleted scene mentioned most likely refers to, quote, the scene in the beginning where a very large amount of fairy inhabitants from the various magic realms seen across the previous seasons and movies falls in through a mall skylight. It was a comedic scene in the film itself, but it would not have been funny to audiences at that time. A YouTube commenter from around 6 years ago claims, quote, there was a scene that was deleted with the blue, green, and white cures fighting with big waves. The scene got deleted because the kids will get traumatized for the loss of their home and their parents from the tsunami. However, the story doesn't end there. A few months later, in May of 2011, Toei would release a special animation of the Precure girls, each gifting the viewer a heart, and the dialogue roughly translates to, even though each of us has a small power is in us. If we all combine our powers, we can get through anything. Together, we are all connected by heart and soul. Everyone's hearts become one. This was dedicated to those most affected by the previous events. The tsunami and earthquake even had an effect on the following season of the series as well, as apparently the initial storyline was supposed to be much darker. However, after the tragedy, the writers took a more lighthearted approach to the tone of the season. With that, multiple outcomes were actually changed in order to calm grievances. Here are a few examples of changes made to Precure Suite due to the natural disasters and the fallout. In episode 6, Sota is trapped in cake mix, and in order to make the fluid look less threatening and reminiscent of recent events, the cake mix was edited to have sparkles, creating a glittery effect. The Melody of Sorrows was completed in this season. According to TV Tropes, quote, the creators wanted children who were nervous about the event to relate to their heroines by having something that was on a similar scale happen to them, unquote. And allegedly, both of Akko's parents were supposed to die, but this idea was scrapped due to feeling the portrayal of a child losing their parents during this time would be in poor taste. Fans to this day speculate what the original season was supposed to look like, or if that many changes were even made at all. It's interesting to think we're in a timeline where pieces of media were changed due to events out of our control, and what could have been. Plants vs. Zombies Disco. Didn't think we would talk about a mobile game in this video, but here we are. Plants vs. Zombies is a tower defense game in which the player uses plants to defend themselves against a zombie invasion. Different zombies have different themes and skills, and this brings us to the dancing zombie that had to face a massive redesign. The zombie in question originally sported a red suit and curly black hair, and he also had a group of zombie backup dancers. This was obviously supposed to be a parody of Michael Jackson's Thriller music video. However, just 2 months after the game was officially released, Michael Jackson, the king of pop, sadly passed away on June 25th, 2009. Surprisingly, it actually took a whole year after his untimely death for Michael Jackson's estate to object to the use of his likeness for the game. There's a chance this would have happened even if Michael Jackson never passed, as I'm sure there's some kind of copyright issues there. I mean, it's clearly him. However, I'm sure it was seen as especially insensitive after he passed, so I guess it does make sense. After this, the Thriller zombie was replaced with a disco zombie that also danced and stuff, but it didn't really hit the same as the original. So, who here remembers the Michael Jackson zombie? What are we drinking today? I have another cookie butter latte, and I'm actually putting a tutorial in my newest vlog. I don't think it'll be up yet. Go check that out, Flurry Sun. Disneyland's Superstar Limo. To my surprise, there are quite a few theme park rides that have been altered due to current events. For this entry, we will be discussing Superstar Limo, which appeared in Disneyland back in 2001. The ride only lasted a year, officially closing in 2002 due to negative reviews. Superstar Limo would take you through a cartoonish version of Hollywood, and let me just read you this silly excerpt from the r/hobby drama subreddit by the user PDL Bean. First, you entered the ride's queue. In the queue, there was a pre-show video hosted by a terrifying puppet of Joan Rivers. This part is seared into my 10-year-old self's psyche. Luckily, there was never a line for this ride, so you could just kind of power walk past Miss Rivers and pretend you didn't see her. After getting through the queue, you were loaded into a bulky, cartoonish purple limo, only to be greeted by another scary puppet on a tiny screen in your ride vehicle. In this ride, you are treated like a celebrity who gets taken through Hollywood, followed by fans and paparazzi, and you get to see animatronic figures of celebrities such as Cindy Crawford, Jackie Chan, Whoopi Goldberg, Tim Allen, etc. What a mix of people. Well, as mentioned before, nobody liked this ride. Like, at all. A quote from the Longview Daily News: "The space would be better devoted to something more entertaining, such as an audio animatronic dentist doing root canals on all the Imagineers who came up with the idea for Superstar Limo." The reception was not good. The jokes were bad, the ride was slow as hell, and it honestly just didn't resonate with the audience, who called it cheap looking and something that simply didn't meet Disney's standards. However, there's a reason why this ride felt almost like a rushed, sloppy product. That's because it initially was supposed to be an entirely different ride, one that had to be scrapped and forgotten for good. The original concept of Superstar Limo was to portray the riders as celebrities being chased by the paparazzi at high speeds in a thrilling adventure through Hollywood. However, as this concept was being put together back in 1997, the tragic and shocking death of Princess Diana shook the world, and this idea was no longer appropriate. For those who don't know, Princess Diana passed away in a car accident that occurred as her vehicle was being chased by paparazzi at high speeds. This obviously would have been extremely insensitive and offensive, honestly, so the entire ride had to be reworked. Since the ride had to be dramatically slowed down, and the original visual gags that were meant to be viewed at a fast pace no longer made sense, Disney was forced to come up with something else entirely, and that's how we got the whole celebrity animatronic theme. The attraction was only open for a year, from 2001 to 2002, so I am incredibly interested in hearing if any of you got to take a spin on the infamous Superstar Limo. 9/11 and its effects on the media as we knew it. There was no way I could make this video without touching on the tragic events of September 11th, 2001. I wasn't even born yet, but everyone knows, from that day on, the country as we knew it had been changed for good, and there was no going back. Because of how detrimental the attacks were on us as a whole, the media kind of stopped in its tracks. Over 40 films were edited or postponed, various award shows such as the Emmys and Grammys were delayed or completely cancelled, and several radio stations had lists of hundreds of songs they avoided playing in the months to come. The list is endless, but let's just go over a few fascinating cases of lost and deleted media connected to the devastating events, because it's honestly shockingly ironic to look back on just how many references there were to the World Trade Center and plane crashes in the media before everything happened. Video game developers were scrambling at this time, as a big portion of titles were surrounded by chaos and violence, if you will. Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty, released 2 months after the events on September 11th, was edited due to a scene depicting the Statue of Liberty and the rest of Manhattan being destroyed. These clips were cut from the game, as well as various pieces of dialogue describing terrorists targeting Manhattan. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, set to release 1 month after the attacks, were quickly altered due to its airport level. The level initially contained a quest revolving around stopping terrorists from bombing a plane. Why we are doing all that in a skateboarding game, I have no idea. The terrorists were immediately reskinned as pickpockets, and the goal of the level was changed. One game around the time was even scrapped completely, never releasing at all. Propeller Arena was set to be released for the Sega Dreamcast on September 19th, 2001. The game was centered around dogfighting in planes, with one level supposedly taking place in the city surrounding skyscrapers. And I mean, just by looking at the cover, there's really no surprise here why it couldn't see the light of day. The game was actually leaked back in 2013, so I do believe it is possible to play online somewhere. The same scenarios go for television shows. Small changes were promptly deliberately made, such as from the opening sequences of The Sopranos, Law & Order SVU, Sex and the City, etc. Many episodes that had originally aired years before the attacks were cut from airings for up to several years after. This includes The Simpsons episode, The City of New York versus Homer Simpson, in which some scenes were set at the World Trade Center. Even anime were affected by this as well. A scene from Hamtaro was cut from a 2002 episode of the English dub, where Omar recounts all the places in the world he has traveled to, starting with New York City. This scene featured the World Trade Center, and as the English dub was produced in 2002, just 1 year after the attacks, the scene would be cut. SpongeBob's infamous deleted scene from the Season 3 episode Just One Bite was, in part, removed due to the current events. The scene included Squidward getting attacked by a security system Mr. Krabs set up to stop those breaking in to steal the Krabby Patty formula. A bucket of gasoline drops onto Squidward, followed by a robot hand lighting a match, causing an explosion. Although it has been confirmed that the scene was also cut due to a standards and practice issue, the attacks were a major factor that went into removing the scene just 3 months after it aired. In other instances, entire episodes and subplots would be reshot in the months after the attacks. One infamous case of this was Season 8, Episode 3 of Friends, where Monica and Chandler were headed to their honeymoon. The episode we all saw that aired consisted of Monica and Chandler beefing with another newlywed couple in the airport and when they got to their hotel. I was never really a fan of this subplot. It always felt like a throwaway idea and not something I ever really looked forward to rewatching. Years later, we actually found out this was not how the initial episode went down at all. In fact, Monica and Chandler weren't even supposed to get to the hotel in the first place. In the original plot, Chandler spots a sign in the airport that states, quote, "Federal law prohibits any joking regarding aircraft hijacking or bombing." He then makes a joke about, quote, taking his bombs very seriously. This doesn't go over well with airport security, and the couple is dragged into the interrogation room. Eventually, they're let out. However, Monica is the culprit this time, as while speaking on the phone with Joey, who claims to smell gas in her apartment and asks if he should break down her door, she sarcastically yells, "No, I want you to stand there and wait for the entire place to blow up." This causes the couple to be brought back into the interrogation room. It wouldn't be until 2004 when the deleted scene was included in a UK release of the Friends DVDs. Before the scenes are shown, a message states, "The following scenes were deleted from the episode, the one where Rachel tells Ross, and are being presented here for the first time." The story involved Chandler with security at an airport and was to air 2 weeks after the events of September 11th, 2001. In light of this, we decided to replace the original story. As part of the history of the show, we hope that the scenes can now be viewed in the spirit which they were originally intended. I think this was a good call, honestly. Despite the deleted subplot being 10 times funnier than what we got, this would have been incredibly insensitive and unfortunate to air at the time, so of course I and most others respect the decision to scrap it. The original scene is now available to view on YouTube. However, there are some scenes that never saw the light and remain lost media to this day. One example of this is a Season 3 episode of Malcolm in the Middle, in which the subplot was originally supposed to feature Francis getting lost in the forest and getting rescued by a, quote, Unabomber type nutcase, unquote. The scenes were actually shot with Stacy Keach as the Nut, and apparently they came out great. However, the episode was set to air right after 9/11, so they reshot the entire subplot. The original footage remains lost. But arguably, one of the most fascinating cases of media being altered due to current events is the subtle yet haunting message displayed over the opening credits of the anime Serial Experiments Lain. The series first aired in Japan in July of 1998, but was given the green light to air on the PBS station based in San Jose, California, entitled KTEH. The station was known for airing series that had not yet aired in the US, such as Doctor Who, and eventually anime series. On September September 16th, 2001, a travel auction was supposed to air on the channel. However, due to recent events, this was postponed and was replaced with an episode of Serial Experiments Lane, one that was most likely intended to air the week after. As the intro plays, with Duvet by Boa playing, best anime intro ever by the way, we are met with a sliding message at the top of the screen. KTEH wishes to acknowledge this week's tragic events and express our deepest concern and sympathy to those most closely affected. In deference to this extraordinary American tragedy, KTEH is postponing the travel auction originally scheduled for this time. The travel auction will appear in our schedule at a later date. This would seriously fly under the radar for 20 years until it was uploaded to YouTube back in 2022 by a user named OtakuD50 who had an old VHS tape of the episode that aired shortly after 9/11. This clip went viral for many reasons, one being the otherwise odd decision to air the most depressing and dark series at a time like this. You'd think KTEH would go for something a bit more lighthearted, but it was most likely a last-minute decision, simply throwing together the episodes they had on hand to fill the space of the travel auction. But the fascination of this clip has to do more with the feeling it gives people. For one, this is something that most likely never would have resurfaced without OtakuD50. It's not something anyone was looking for, or even something anyone knew about. Such an inconsequential moment on television in the grand scheme of things would not have been purposely archived because of this message. It was simply something that was recorded most likely for the sake of being able to go back and watch your favorite episodes. I think another major factor that goes into the public's fascination with this clip is the fact that it feels almost like a time capsule of a very scary, uncertain time in the country. Over the years, we have learned so much and consumed so much content regarding the attacks. It's like we know the events like the back of our hand. However, back when it happened, nobody really knew what was going on, why, who was responsible, or most importantly, what was to come next. But in this clip, time stands still. Lane walks through as her hat flies off, pausing in midair, along with a bird in the sky. She looks at the paused bird, acknowledging the oddity, and continues walking. Because life goes on even when time stands still. 9/11 here is referred to as a great American tragedy, as it's not like there was a name for it yet. The clip is not just fascinating, it's a literal piece of history that otherwise would have been left behind. If you find this interesting at all, which I certainly do, this is the whole reason I wanted to make this video, you have to check out this video, When Serial Experiments Lane Aired After 9/11 by Screen Takes. It's such a great video and I highly recommend checking it out if you want a more in-depth version of what I just explained. I would have never known about this if it weren't for that video, so obviously it inspired me, so please go check that out if you already haven't. So that is about it for this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know this was a bit of a different one. I hope you guys still enjoyed. Let me know what you thought. That's about it. I'll see you guys next week. Bye!